G'day, it's Mark and welcome back to the channel. Today in the Falcon series, we're looking at the upgraded, mechanically, but probably visually not so much, the Falcon EB. The EB Falcon was produced from August 1991 to August 1993. Visually, there was little to distinguish the EB from the EA. The Ford badge had been moved from the bonnet to the center of the grille, and the C-pillar, which previously had the little louvers on the EA, these were omitted for the EB for a cleaner look. Also different was the rear tail lights and the applique across the boot lid. From an engine perspective, the EB Series 1 had the 3.9 central injection engine with 120 kilowatts of power, or the optional 3.9 multi-point, which was standard on things like the Fairmont gear, which had 139 kilowatts of power. The 5-litre V8 had 165 kilowatts of power. With Series 2, the 4-litre engine produced 148 kilowatts of power, so a really useful increase in power. It also had more torque. It had 348 newton meters of torque, and that compared to the 3.9 multi of 338 newton meters, while the 5-litre engine had 165 kilowatts of power and 388 newton meters of torque. When the vehicles went over to Tickford, like the XR6, for example, that had a power output with the 4-litre engine, 6-cylinder engine of 161 kilowatts of power and 365 newton meters of torque. Big news, and thanks to Jack Nasser, who was head of Ford at the time, was the reintroduction of the Ford V8. And finally, the rivalry between Ford and Holden, not just from a sales point of view, but from an image perspective, in terms of V8 compared to V8, was back on the table, and a variety of magazines carried road tests between Falcon versus Commodore V8. The V8 engine was a Mexican-sourced 5-litre or 302 cubic inch Windsor V8, and it was paired with the 4-speed M95 LE automatic transmission. Mechanically, the EB was a big improvement on the EA, although it's fair to say that the Series 2 EAs had many of the EB features that would be released for this model. Some of the changes included revised front suspension geometry, which gave the EB a much better level of grip and a much improved steering feel. The range consisted of the Falcon GL sedan and wagon, the Falcon S sedan and wagon, the Falcon S XR8 sedan only, a very limited edition SS, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail later, Ford Fairmont sedan and wagon, and Fairmont gear sedan and wagon. A Series 2 EB arrived in April 1992, and that featured a 6-cylinder engine that was increased from 3,949 cc's to 3,984. So effectively this became a 4-litre engine, and that was available across the board with the option of the V8. The automatic transmission was updated to the M91 LE, and the electronics were also improved. There were also some minor changes to the styling in terms of wheel trims, wheel covers, alloy wheels, and so on. The base model now had body-coloured bumpers, and the previously matte black plastic exterior door handles were now given a glossy finish. And that update reportedly cost $1 million, so low cost. The EB2 also introduced the smart lock security system. Now, there were improvements made to both Commodore and to Falcon from a security point of view that had a lot of issues in Western Australia, and they had to produce specific options in terms of locking systems and immobilizers to combat the theft levels in WA. But this then rolled out across the whole country. The EB also featured foam-filled A-pillars, and this greatly increased the crush protection and stiffened the frame of the vehicle. So it made the car stronger, but it also reduced noise, vibration, and harshness. One of the rarest models in the Falcon range was the SS, and they produced just 10 vehicles in the EB2 range. And here is a factory bulletin which shows the announcement of that particular pack. Very, very low volume. I thought it was interesting that it had ABS brakes fitted because these cars were produced pretty well for Group 3E series production racing, where ABS generally is not featured on race cars, but that was part of the standard fitment. And 5 of the 10 were absorbed immediately into production car racing. Mal Rose and a number of other drivers ran these cars up against the SS Commodore. And interestingly enough, in the VP SS series, there was also a very rare 6-cylinder option in the SS model, again, specifically made for this racing series. I remember when I was at Holden, these were offered, and apart from really the racing competitors, there was very, very little market demand for such a vehicle. Along with Series 2, the range changed from the GL, and that became the Falcon GLI for injection, even though I guess the previous ones had injection as well. Another big exciting announcement was the launch of the EB Falcon GT. The EB Series 2 were the first models to feature, I guess, a joint association between Ford and Tickford Vehicle Engineering. And so the first model that was introduced was the Falcon S XR6, which featured Tickford enhancements to the engine and suspension. And similarly, there was an S XR8, which followed along similar lines with the 5-litre V8. Tickford Vehicle Engineering also reintroduced the 25th anniversary EB GT with a 200 kilowatt engine and a limited production of 250 units. And that was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first XR Falcon GT. And these cars were available in 3 colours. The GT had leather interior, wood-tone finishes, and it was certainly very much in the tradition of the Grand Touring vehicle. The body kit on the GT I thought was very, very nicely done, as opposed to some of the later versions that were released. The body kit, the wheels, the spoilers, and so on, yeah, it was very tastefully done. And the car really did look the part. These cars were sent to Tickford Engineering, which is where I worked when I was at FPV. It was the same facility at Campbellfield. So the cars went across the road as core vehicles, and then these were fitted with their body kit, their wheels and interior and other bits and pieces, so that you eventually had a core base Falcon going in at one end, obviously a V8 spec, and then a GT coming out the other end. So there's just some images here of the production facility and the vehicles waiting for dealer delivery. And certainly the EB GT, it sold very well. There were some issues around the output of the engine, whether it really did have 200 kilowatts or not. That was sort of a bit of a question mark, which I'd say probably sullied its reputation a little bit. And these cars did struggle in the market as used cars for many, many years. You could buy them for fairly, mid $20,000, amounts of money, but Australian dollars. But they've since become, more sought after, as have all the Australian vehicles. And, now they're worth certainly a lot more money than that. But for quite a long time, a little bit like the VL Walkinshaws, you could buy those cars at one stage very, very cheaply because it just seemed that the market didn't really want them. Falcon continued to be very popular with taxis. It was the #1 selling vehicle in the category. And also available in EB was a factory dual fuel option. I think maybe Tickford may have done the conversions on those as well, but you could also buy a dual fuel Falcon. So in other words, running on petrol and LPG, liquid petroleum gas. From a motorsport perspective, there was the EBSS, which I mentioned earlier, with Mal Rose claiming the championship win in 1993. And the Falcon also made a return to touring car racing, the first time since 1984. And that was with a Group A 5-litre EB Falcon. And it also won the 1993 Australian Touring Car Championship with Glenn Seaton and his Peter Jackson sponsored vehicle. Glenn Seaton also ran the 1993 Sandown 500 and won that. And that was the first Falcon to win that race since Alan Moffat had won in an XB hardtop in 1974. 1994, Dick Johnson and John Bowe, they won the 1994 Sandown 500 and also the 1994 Bathurst 1000, which was known as the Tui's 1000. And that was Falcon's first win since Dick Johnson and John French won the crash shortened race in 1981. So I guess you could say that EB might have stood for extra benefits. Certainly the car became more powerful, the return of the V8 engine, the return of the GT, improved safety, addition of ABS. There were a raft of changes, improved security and against theft. And it really was a very well-sorted car. I particularly must say like the EB Gear. If you look on the channel, you'll see episodes of my EB Gear project. It is a Series 2 car, although I am going to put the Series 1 wheels on there, the BBS style wheels. And I love those see-through headrests, front and rear on that car. I think that looks terrific. Anyway, if you're interested in that, check out the playlist on the EB project. All up, there were 121,221 EB Falcons produced. So thanks very much for watching the episode on the EB Falcon, a car that visually didn't look much different to the EA, but mechanically was a significant improvement, particularly on the early models of the EA. So thanks very much for watching. Please give the episode a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to watch more episodes on Australian cars and other vehicles as well. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Safety has always been a high priority to Ford, which is why the new Falcon GLI boasts even greater cabin strength than ever. But most importantly, for the first time, Falcon is now available with optional ABS brakes. Now, what does this mean to you? Simply that your brakes won't lock up under emergency braking conditions, giving you greater control, particularly in the wet. Have you driven the safest Falcon ever? The new Falcon GLI.